Hi again. My name is Robert Thomas DeVincentis, and I'm the author of the Book of Kings, which deals with aftermath science, which is brought about from the four subjects: science, nature, man, and God. And I talk about the historical origins on those subjects and how it relates to aftermath science. Okay, if you look at those four subjects, there's a causal or connection or a nexus between them. They can't really be separated out because there's something on each one of those subjects that are connected to each other. So when we look originally at science, we were defeating through other talks that science is not your God, but rather it's a gift from God. And science didn't bring about all the things that you see, that they were miraculously made by God. And then that brings us into the theories of evolution and these types of things, which are faulty at best. There's no concrete evidence on what's happening here because you can't find a half man, half fish, these kinds of things, and yet they're claiming that man came out of the water. But there's no fossil record for that. In fact, the record is that, you see this in the news today or on videos. Science now is taking a turn, basically what I believe for the worst, where you're getting people that are just making the most unbelievable claims in the scientific community, and they're on a rampage to get your attention on different things. I said in the beginning that the best genes were given at the time of creation. So the man and the woman, they were made separately from the way we are. We come about because of them, from Adam and Eve. Eve being taken out of Adam, and so forth, and then we're the record. Same thing. So everything was brought about in a whole state. In other words, when God created the animals and then said, be fruitful and multiply, they come by their own seed. And as you look out the door or window, your backyard, you go on a trip, go in a forest, everything brings about its own kind by its own seed. And that is the natural model. There is no other model. You're making up something that's absolutely absurd. I watch scientific videos all the time. You go on the internet, and they're proclaiming, oh, this fish, he developed his scales, and how animals brought about through their own evolution in nature to defeat being eaten alive by wolves, this kind of thing. In other words, this is craziness. A rabbit, let's say you take a rabbit, for instance. He's being attacked by a wolf. Well, that rabbit just got killed. How are the other rabbits going to know that they need to run faster? Jesus, who is the Son of God, and again, I'm a Roman Catholic, and make a disclaimer that the church has not commissioned me to speak on their behalf, but yet I am a Roman Catholic, and I know the Bible very well, as I explained. And Jesus said, you can't add 1 cubit to your stature. In other words, you can't make yourself better by adding thought. And for some reason or another, I guess nature has its own built-in thought to make things change, get better, when in reality, that's about as far from the truth as you can get, and about as far from the truth as you can get when we get into man, the development of man through evolution, him becoming better. No, sorry, we're just mere copies of Adam. How could we be better than the copy itself? No, you couldn't. And I said in many of my talks that Adam was a better model because he lived longer and a lot of other things were in his favor, as opposed to where we are today in our after the flood, where God reduced man's years to 120 at best, if he can live that long. But these are things that are being brought forward in society today that are taking everybody's mind and taking you further and further away from God. all these different humans that are supposedly, down through the centuries and millions of years in development and all this kind of thing, changing from an ape-like person is absolutely so wrong. And they're finding now things when they discover things that were buried, and all of a sudden it changes their original story to something else. So the scary part of it is that man does not have any real anchor on himself today. He's just out there floating around in the cosmos, so to speak, wondering about things, and he's left. He doesn't have any concrete thing to hang on to, like his belief in God Almighty, that I believe that comes about through the truth, which has been revealed down through the centuries on different things. Okay, so we show that things cannot become better. In other words, man can't make himself better, or no animal can make themselves better, making nature like it has some kind of inert brain that can bring about something to change it, when in reality it doesn't. And when we come to extinct species that were here on the earth, well, obviously they procreated and brought their own kind, and they didn't change from one dynamic to the next, an evolution, like a chicken to a dinosaur or a manatee to an elephant. I mean, this is the most ridiculous stuff that's in science, and that's where you're paying thousands of dollars a year to go to a college education to get that. It has no relative understanding. There are things in science that are true, some things in medical and these types of things, but they're far from the realities of life. And the whole idea about man, if we get into man and God, look, God created man in his own image. I said that man is smarter than AI. He's not like a computer. Of course, you can feed information into that, but the computer can't come to the logical conclusion or the conclusion that a human being can. And therein lies the vast difference of today and the way thinking is. In other words, they're saying that the machines are going to take over, but in reality, that's not true. Nothing can be better than actually the Lord Jesus Christ, and he came to earth here via the woman. In other words, he was born of the Virgin Mary, and he's the incarnate, and so he's the second person of the Holy Trinity. So you're not going to get better. We're made in his image. This whole idea that man, he was a spectacular being when he was made. He was spectacular. Nothing compared to the glory of Adam, and nothing could compare to the beauty of Eve. This whole idea that we were like some ape-like creatures on the earth. Now, there is different bone structures. There's always been the talk about people that had giant, that were giants. Certainly that's a part of, and it still is today. It's still part of history that there's giants and people that have larger skeletal things and like that. But it doesn't give the scientific community to make crazy thoughts. And the same thing about God giving man. He gave the earth to man to take care of. He didn't bring about aliens here to take over and do these kinds of things. That's a falsehood. Just because you can't find something and it doesn't make sense to you, now you're going to make up some wild story. Well, how about the idea that man was very smart and that we lost some of the technologies that we don't have anymore that could be superior to what we have when you look at the pyramids and the way they were built and all the different mathematical dimensions. The same thing about outer space. We don't know time, space, the number of stars, These are all things that are not in man's toolbox and are beyond human comprehension, which should bring you to God. Now, how can I say all these things? How could I be so far different than the average person on the street? Well, the average person on the street is always beguiled by the things that he's seeing all the time. He's believing in these professors, scientific people, even the medical community. He's taking stock in those things. It's not a bad thing to do that, but I'm saying to you is that when you go off on these tangents that leaves God out of the picture, you know, where you're saying a distant star, a comet, brought life to the earth on water. Are you kidding? Aren't you making that your God when God created life here? And I showed that there is no other life other than what you're going to find here on earth. God came here, lived here, even died here, and then left here. So, and he's coming back again. So these are the things that are important in your life, not the craziness that you're going to see on your TV set when you go into these different video platforms that are taking everybody in the whole world further and further away from God when they should be loving God and coming to God, when they should be believing the Ten Commandments, when they should be believing in the creation story that God handed to, or Moses wrote about. You think those are all lies? They're not going away. What's happened is that there's so much craziness in the world, in the scientific world and everywhere else, where they're leading people down the primrose path and they're making up stories that are so patently untrue. And it's wrong, it's a falsehood, and it's very damaging to people. You know, people, you know, you start believing in this stuff, you know, it's craziness. And that's exactly what it is. You lost your anchor, now you're afloat in the world with no anchor support to believe that God orchestrated everything, that God's in control of everything. I show through my talks, many of them, they're worthy. The earth is the oldest object in the world. Galileo was wrong. Yes, we do go around the sun, but when the earth was originally made, before anything else, this was the planet. This was the only thing in the entire universe before any big erroneous, a Big Bang theory and all this other stuff. Everything points to Earth. This is the main place here that's going to concern you. Not you living on some other planet somewhere else, but right here on Earth. You need the things of Earth to exist, and this is the place that God gave you, and we're supposed to be good stewards of the planet and take care of stuff. Been over and over and over, the scientific community's really done a poor job with their global warming to everything else, causing a big scare in everybody, when the reality is you would die without fossil fuels. You know, I just can't believe, but everybody's taken in by the scientific hoopla, and that's exactly where we're at today. And there is no end of it, to be honest with you, unless somebody like myself captures your imagination in a different direction to bring you back to Earth, the place where God made for you. This place is for you. You can admire the universe that God made. You might even be able to send out a probe, look around or whatever. That's not a bad thing. But it becomes a bad thing when you start making up stories that discount God, that discount the fact that God is the one that made everything. So that's where I am today. So science, nature, man, and God. And then we have the false narrative on those subjects. And they're all interconnected in some way or another, including man and God, because Jesus became a man. In other words, he is the man God. And there's nothing that can be better than that. So I wish you a good evening. I hope you're able to obtain some knowledge that I have, that I'm able to give to you. And it's not my own knowledge, it's the knowledge that you can find in the Holy Bible, the things that people have explained over the years about the place that we live, and that it's not as crazy as you think it is, that it's being made out to be. So anyway, you have a good evening, and I hope to talk to you again. Thank you.